very much, Dee, and welcome everybody. Welcome to the team that have joined us on the panel from ISC, Ag Communicators, PIRSA and Livestock SA. It's great that we can present this webinar together tonight. So as Dee said, we've got a lot of information to get through for the session this evening, and hopefully you'll go away with some really practical tips that'll help you on farm with your record keeping. So the agenda for this evening, I just wanted to outline the role of Integrity Systems Company, talk a little bit about the importance of the red meat integrity system, and then look at each of the integrity system programs, and then get into the detail around some record keeping tips that will help you as part of your LPA accreditation and if you were asked to participate in an audit. So just to start off with, where and what is Integrity Systems Company and how does that fit into the red meat industry structure? Well, this is the national red meat industry outlined on the screen here at the moment, and ISC, or Integrity Systems Company, is a subsidiary of Meat and Livestock Australia, which is a service provider to the industry. So MLA and ISC provide industry services on behalf of producers and others in the industry. Now, the organisations in the top row there, they're focused on policy and strategy. They're often referred to as peak industry councils, and they advocate on behalf of producers to a range of decision makers. And all of those organisations on the slide there have separate roles, but they all work together to support the industry. A little bit about Meat and Livestock Australia. So MLA is responsible for research, development and adoption and marketing activities on behalf of the red meat industry. We do that by collaborating with the Australian government and the wider red meat industry to invest in those R&D and marketing activities. And the way that we do that is that transaction levies, or the levies that are paid on the sale of livestock, they're matched with Australian government funds up to a certain point, and then they're invested by MLA under the direction and guidance of those peak industry councils in R&D and marketing activities. And those initiatives that are invested in by MLA contribute to producer profitability, sustainability and global competitiveness. So Integrity Systems Company, on the other hand, so a subsidiary of Meat and Livestock Australia, we manage and deliver Australia's red meat integrity system. Now, this system underpins consumer confidence in on-farm production of Australian red meat, and it covers, it ensures that Australian red meat is safe to eat and fully traceable, provides on-farm assurance, animal identification and lifetime traceability, and the system underpins the livestock selling system, giving confidence to buyers, retailers and consumers. So just to put all of this into context, the Australian red meat industry is a $28 billion industry. It employs 400,000 people across 80,000 businesses and delivers product to 100 global markets all around the world. So the red meat integrity system that underpins that is really important to the livestock sector. The system underpins consumer confidence in on-farm production of Australian red meat, and it covers the on-farm assurance, or the livestock management component, and that's delivered through the Livestock Production Assurance Program, or LPA. And the second is identification and traceability of livestock, and that's through the National Livestock Identification System, or NLIS. Now, it's this overall system made up of those two programs that supports our domestic and international markets. And because of this, our red meat produced here in Australia is trusted and highly sought after all around the world. Now, there are multiple producers and many properties ranging in size all around Australia. It's the integrity system that's really about delivering one measure of quality through one integrity system. And we all have a role to play to ensure that we can stand by what we sell. Now, just as a quick refresher, because I understand we've probably got varying degrees of experience and knowledge on the webinar this evening, there are two programs which work together to underpin the red meat industry's food safety and traceability on farm. So as I said, the first of those, Livestock Production Assurance, or LPA, that's all about on-farm assurance, covering on-farm management of food safety, animal welfare and biosecurity risks. And it's the tick of assurance for your product from producer through to consumer. And it demonstrates the professionalism of the industry and underpins our market access for Australian red meat. The other program that I mentioned previously is the National Livestock Identification System, or NLIS. And it's all about identification and traceability, and it tracks the location of every animal throughout its life. It's mandatory for producers and endorsed by major producer, feedlot, agent, sale yard and processor bodies. And the NLIS is underpinned by state and territory legislation and enhances Australia's ability to track livestock during disease or food safety incidences such as chemical residues and things like that. Now, there are 3 other components to the system which are really, really important and bring it all together. The first of those is the Property Identification Code, or the PIC. Now, a PIC is required for registration with both LPA and NLIS. PICs are managed independently by state and territory departments of agriculture, and by incorporating a PIC into the LPA and NLIS, that's really the only way that traceability and food safety can be managed at a national level. And the 2 other elements which make up the program, one of those is the LPA National Vendor Deck, which is required for when livestock move through the value chain, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. And then, of course, record keeping across both LPA and NLIS. And all of this is really important as red meat producers, that you keep those records on farm as part of both the LPA and NLIS. So when it comes to being part of livestock production assurance, it means that producers need to keep your online LPA account details up to date. You need to maintain your LPA accreditation. So this means that as producers, you need to complete the LPA learning and assessment. You need to, and the assessment, is a series of multiple choice questions which you need to answer correctly to receive that accreditation. Producers renew accreditation every 3 years to ensure that their knowledge of the program remains current. So that's why it's a 3-year cycle. And accreditation gives you more options for marketing your livestock, and because it means that you can access those LPA National Vendor Decks for all livestock movements between PICs. You also need to manage your livestock and your property in line with the 7 LPA on-farm requirements, and these are outlined in the rules and standards, but they go across property risk assessments, safe and responsible animal treatments, stock foods, fodder crops, grain and pasture treatments, preparation for dispatch of livestock, livestock transactions and movements, biosecurity and animal welfare, and we'll touch on each of those for most of the webinar this evening. Also need to maintain thorough records as evidence of livestock history and on-farm practices, and you also need to be prepared to undergo an audit if requested. Because LPA is an audited accreditation, so as a livestock producer you agree to complete an audit when asked. And this is what provides that accountability from paddock to plate for our customers. So for the National Livestock Identification System, as a producer, you need to keep your online NLIS account details up to date. You need to order and use NLIS tags as identifiers for every animal on your PIC. Now, the required tag type can differ a bit between the states, but every animal must be tagged with an accredited NLIS device and can't be moved to another PIC without one, including to another farm, feedlot, sale yard or processor. You need to record movements of livestock in the NLIS database. Now, livestock transfers between PICs must be recorded by transferring the tags in the database, and the person receiving the livestock is responsible for completing the transfer. All producers need to regularly check their own records against the database to ensure that those transfers have been completed. And this is really important if you're relying on someone else to make the transfer. You need to check that that's actually happened. And it's also recommended that you do a PIC reconciliation each year to ensure that the database is an accurate record of the devices and the livestock on your property. So when it comes to LPA National Vendor Decks, we want to be really clear on what producers need to do. So the first is you need to maintain that LPA accreditation to continue to access NVDs. NVDs are a legal document, so when ticking boxes or signing an NVD, your declaration needs to be backed up by accurate farm records. You need to ensure that your NVDs are clear, complete and correct. You need to file and store your completed and received NVDs, and you also should check that NVDs have a corresponding NLIS transfer to or from your PIC. NLIS transfers, as I've said, and related NVDs are certainly reviewed during an LPA audit. So we've given a bit of a refresher there about the different elements or programs that make up the red meat integrity system. Now we're going to go into a little bit more detail around the LPA and the record keeping, because good records and systems are the foundation of the integrity system.